The sky burned red above the colony city of Varus Prime. Sirens screamed through every street. People ran in every direction, clutching bags, children, and hope. The air smelled of smoke and dust. The ground shook again and again as fire fell from the sky. Inside a collapsing workshop, a human engineer named Evan Hale tried to save what little he could. He had worked there for 6 years, building machines to help both humans and aliens live side by side. Now all that work was turning into ash. A voice came through his radio. "Evan, leave the building. Evacuation is in progress." He looked around. The roof beams were breaking. The walls were cracked. He grabbed his tool bag and ran toward the exit. Then through the thick gray smoke he heard something. A cry. It was soft, frightened, not human. He stopped. Again the sound came, a child's sob echoing from under fallen metal. Evan turned his flashlight toward the noise. Through the smoke he saw a small shape, a young alien girl trapped under heavy debris. Her skin was pale violet, glowing faintly. Her eyes shimmered with tears. "Hey, hold on!" Evan shouted, rushing toward her. The ground shook again. The ceiling above them cracked open. He dropped his bag and pulled at the steel beam pinning her leg. It didn't move. He tried again, gritting his teeth, ignoring the heat burning his skin. Outside, people shouted his name. "Evan, get out! The bombs are coming back!" He didn't listen. He could see her struggling to breathe. Her voice trembled. "Please, don't leave me." Evan met her glowing blue eyes and said, "I won't." He braced himself, grabbed a metal rod, and pushed with all his strength. The beam shifted. She screamed in pain. He pushed again, his arms trembling, muscles tearing, until the beam rolled off her leg. "Can you move?" he asked. She nodded weakly. "My name?" "Lyra." "All right, Lyra," he said. "We're getting out of here." He lifted her into his arms. She was light, shaking, and covered in dust. A deep rumble echoed through the ground. He looked up through the broken roof. Bright lights were descending. Enemy ships. Outside, soldiers shouted. "They're bombing the sector again." "Run!" Evan ran through the ruined hallway, holding Lyra tight against his chest. Every few steps, an explosion threw him off balance. Pieces of ceiling crashed down. Fire swept across the corridor. Lyra buried her face in his shoulder, crying softly. At the door, a blast wave threw them both to the ground. Evan hit the floor hard, his ears ringing. He tried to get up, but pain shot through his left arm. It was trapped under fallen concrete. He couldn't feel his fingers. Lyra crawled toward him, eyes wide with terror. "Your arm." Evan looked down. Blood and dust covered everything. His arm was crushed under the slab. He tried to pull it free, but it didn't move. More explosions echoed closer. The soldiers outside screamed, "Fall back! Leave the zone!" One of them saw Evan through the flames and shouted, "Drop her! You can't save both of you." Evan looked at Lyra. She was trembling, clutching his sleeve. He could run and live, or stay and die. But in that moment he didn't think. He just smiled through the pain and said, "Not dropping her." He used his right arm to push the concrete again. It wouldn't move. He gritted his teeth and kicked against it with all his strength. His vision blurred from the pain. The ceiling began to crack above them. Then a deafening explosion struck nearby. A shockwave threw a storm of glass and metal across the room. Evan covered Lyra with his body, shielding her completely. A beam fell, crushing his trapped arm even harder. There was a flash of light, white and blinding. Then silence. For a long moment there was nothing. Smoke and dust filled the air. The world went gray. Evan couldn't feel his arm anymore. Couldn't hear the sirens. He only felt the small heartbeat against his chest. "Lyra was alive," he whispered. "You're safe now. Stay still." His voice was faint, almost gone. She cried softly, gripping his uniform. "Don't die," she whispered. "Please don't die." He smiled weakly. "Not planning to." Another rumble came. The building groaned one last time and collapsed inward. When rescue teams arrived hours later, they found a crater where the workshop had been. Among the debris, they found the alien girl, alive, holding a broken metal badge with a human name burned into it. Evan Hale. But the man himself was gone. The rescuers carried the girl away, whispering that no one could have survived that blast. Yet as she looked back at the smoking ruins, Lyra felt something deep inside. She knew he was still alive. Somewhere under all that fire and dust, the man who refused to drop her was still breathing, and she would never forget him. The bombing ended, but the city was gone. Flames burned through what was once home to thousands. Smoke covered the sky like a black blanket hiding the stars. In the middle of the ruins, rescue ships searched for signs of life. Among the survivors was the young alien girl, Lyra. Her skin was covered in ash, her hair tangled and gray with dust. She sat on the back of a rescue truck, wrapped in a thermal blanket. Her small hands clutched a broken metal badge that read Evan Hale. She stared at it silent. A medic tried to talk to her, but she didn't answer. All she said was one thing again and again. "He saved me." The medics assumed Evan was dead. No human could survive that kind of blast. But Lyra didn't believe it. In her heart, she felt something alive, a pulse, a memory that refused to fade. Days passed. The alien camps were filled with noise, crying, and fear. The humans were kept separate now, behind walls guarded by soldiers. Everyone blamed someone else for the attack. Some said humans started the war. Others said aliens brought it on themselves. Lyra sat alone in her tent at night. She couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him, the man who carried her through the fire, the man who lost his arm to save her, the man who didn't drop her when everyone else ran. She took the badge and pressed it to her chest. "Evan," she whispered. "I'll find you." The next morning, she left the refugee camp. She slipped through the fences while the guards argued. She walked through the burned streets, searching every ruined building, every shelter, every shadow. The city was a graveyard of metal and silence. In one corner, she found a wall half buried in rubble. On it was a mark, a human handprint burned into the dust. It was big, rough and slightly smeared, as if left by someone pulling himself up. She touched it gently. It was still there, unwashed by rain. Her heart raced. She followed the direction of the handprint and reached the edge of the blast crater. The air was still hot. She saw twisted metal, half-melted machines, and something that shimmered under the sunlight. She climbed down carefully and found it, a small tool bag with the same name burned on it. Evan Hale, her eyes filled with tears. She knelt and whispered, "You were here." Then she looked up at the sky. "If you're alive, I'll find you." Meanwhile, far from the ruins, inside a human medical ship, a man woke up screaming. "Evan." He sat up, sweating, gasping for air. His left arm was gone. A silver mechanical replacement was attached to the shoulder, still inactive. A nurse rushed in. "You're lucky to be alive," she said softly. "We found you near the crater. You shouldn't have survived." Evan didn't answer. He stared at his missing arm. Then he asked the girl, the alien girl, "Is she alive?" The nurse hesitated. "We don't know. We found no alien child with you." He looked away. A wave of pain hit him, not from his arm, but from the thought of her face. He remembered her small voice saying, "Don't die." He had promised he wouldn't. And now he didn't know if she had made it. That night, he stood by the ship's window. Outside, the stars burned bright over the black ocean of space. He clenched his new metal hand and whispered, "If she's alive, I'll find her." On the other side of the planet, Lyra whispered the same words. "If he's alive, I'll find him." Neither of them knew how long it would take. But something connected them now, something stronger than blood or species. A promise made under fire, a bond that neither war nor distance could break. And in that moment, far apart under the same starry sky, both the human and the alien felt the same heartbeat. The story between them was not over. It was only beginning. Months passed since the bombing. The war had ended, but peace never came. The city was divided by tall metal walls. Humans lived on one side, aliens on the other, and both sides carried scars they couldn't hide. Evan Hale walked slowly through the crowded human district. His left arm was gone, replaced by a silver machine that whirred softly with every move. People stared at it when he passed. Some called him a hero. Others called him a fool for saving an alien. He didn't answer anyone. He only kept walking. He now worked in a small repair shop fixing old machines. He rarely spoke. The sound of tools was his only comfort. Sometimes when the wind blew from the alien's side, he stopped working and looked toward the wall. He didn't know why, but he always felt something pulling him there. Something unfinished. At night, when the streets went silent, the memories returned. The fire, the screams, the small trembling voice that said, "Please don't leave me." He woke up sweating, clutching his metal arm as if it could bring back what he lost. One evening, while repairing a damaged power box near the border wall, he heard faint footsteps behind him. He turned quickly. No one, only shadows. Then he saw it on the wall beside him. Glowing blue symbols written in a language he didn't know. The glow was weak but steady, like someone had drawn them recently. He reached out and touched the marks. They pulsed once under his fingers, then faded. He didn't understand what they meant, but they felt familiar, almost alive. Something deep inside him stirred. He whispered softly, "Lyra." The next night he returned to the same spot. More symbols had appeared, stretching further along the wall. They formed a trail that led toward the old train yard near the alien side. Evan followed them carefully, keeping to the shadows. The night air was cold, filled with the hum of drones. When he reached the yard, he saw a small figure standing near a broken lamppost. She turned slowly. Her eyes glowed faint blue in the dark. It was her, Lyra, alive. For a moment, both just stared. She was older now, taller. Her once violet skin marked by scars and dirt, but he would have known those eyes anywhere. They didn't move for several seconds. Then she ran to him and stopped just a few steps away. "You're alive," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "You too." Her voice shook. "I looked for you every day. No one believed me when I said you saved me." He looked at her and said quietly, "I thought you were gone." Before they could speak more, bright lights flashed across the yard. Loud voices shouted in alien tongue. Lyra's expression turned to fear. "They found me," she said. "I have to go." Evan stepped forward. "Wait, who?" She pressed a small crystal into his hand. "Keep this. It will guide you." Then she ran. He called out her name, but soldiers were already closing in. He ducked behind a pile of metal scraps and watched as she disappeared into the dark. When the lights faded and the yard went quiet again, Evan opened his hand. The crystal glowed with the same soft blue light as the marks on the wall. Inside it, faint images flickered, documents, maps, and strange symbols. He didn't know what it meant, but one thing was clear. Lyra was in danger. He clenched the crystal tightly. If she was hunted, he would protect her again. No wall would stop him. Not this time. As dawn broke, the human district came to life again. Evan walked back to his workshop, the crystal glowing faintly in his pocket. For the first time in months, he felt alive. The bond that fire had forged between them had returned. He had lost an arm, but not his purpose. And somewhere beyond the wall, a girl who once called him her hero was now being hunted by her own kind. He would find her. He would save her again, because a man who refused to let go once would never let go twice. The nights grew colder around the divided city. On one side, humans rebuilt broken homes. On the other, aliens buried their dead. Between them stood the great wall of metal and fear. But Evan Hale no longer saw borders. He only saw one goal, to find Lyra again. He studied the small glowing crystal she had given him. Each time he touched it, faint images appeared inside. Maps, coordinates, secret files written in alien code. He didn't understand all of it, but one name kept repeating. Project Dawnfire. That name haunted him for days. He began sneaking out at night, following the trails Lyra had marked before. Blue symbols glowed faintly in dark alleys and under bridges. Each led him deeper toward the alien side. He moved carefully, hiding from patrols and scanners. His mechanical arm helped him climb walls and cross gaps silently. He wasn't a soldier anymore, but he was no longer an ordinary man either. At last, one night, the symbols ended at an abandoned subway tunnel. The entrance was hidden behind debris. He pushed the rocks aside and stepped inside. His light flickered across metal walls covered with alien writing. In the middle stood a small figure waiting. It was Lyra. She looked thinner than before, tired but determined. Her eyes still glowed the same soft blue. When she saw him, she smiled faintly. "I knew you would come," she said. Evan nodded. "I always do." They sat together in the cold tunnel. She opened a small holographic pad and projected strange images. Battle maps, city blueprints, and lines of alien text. She pointed at one of them. "This was not a human attack," she said. "The bombing that destroyed our city, it came from a secret faction within my people. They wanted humans blamed. They wanted war." Evan frowned. "Why?" "Power," she said quietly. "Some of our leaders believe peace makes us weak. They wanted to unite our kind under hate. You were just in the way." He stared at the files in silence. The faces of dead soldiers and burned civilians flashed in his mind. All of it a lie. He clenched his metal hand. "Then we show the truth." Lyra shook her head. "We can't. If they know I took these files, they'll kill us both. They already sent soldiers after me. He looked at her and said, then we don't run. We fight smart. For days they met secretly in the tunnels. She taught him how to read the alien codes. He built devices to store the data. Together they pieced the truth. Evidence that alien generals had planned the bombing and blamed humanity. But the deeper they searched, the more dangerous it became. One night, while copying a file from an old command terminal, they heard footsteps above. Voices shouted in alien tongue. Lyra froze. They found us, Evan grabbed her hand. This way. They ran through the dark tunnels, their footsteps echoing against the walls. Behind them, the sound of metal boots grew louder. Shots of blue energy burned holes in the walls around them. Evan pulled her behind an old maintenance door. He held it shut as soldiers pounded from the other side. Go, he said. Find another exit. She shook her head. Not without you. The door began to crack. Evan activated his mechanical arm. It hummed with power. He pushed back hard, bending the metal frame until it sealed shut. Then he looked at her. Run, Lyra. She hesitated, then nodded and disappeared into the dark. Moments later, the soldiers broke through, but Evan was gone. He climbed out through a vent and escaped into the night. Smoke rose behind him as the tunnel exploded. He limped across the bridge back to human territory, holding the data drive in his hand. He didn't know if Lyra made it out, but he believed she had. That night, he opened the files again and read the truth until dawn. Everything pointed to one name, the alien general leading Project Dawnfire, Lyra's father. Evan sat in silence as the sun rose over the broken city. He whispered to himself, this isn't just her war anymore. It's mine too. And for the first time since the bombing, his heart burned not with loss, but with purpose. The truth had a name, and he was going to bring it to light. The sun never rose on peace again. News spread fast across both sides of the city. A traitor had stolen military data from the alien command. Her name was Lyra. Posters with her face appeared on walls. Her soft eyes and pale violet skin now marked her as a target. The reward for her capture was enough to make anyone betray her. Evan watched the soldiers pass through the streets from his window. He stayed hidden inside his small workshop, metal parts scattered around him. The glow from his mechanical arm flickered in the dark. He had read the files again and again. The truth was clear. Lyra's own father, General Rain, had ordered the bombings that killed thousands. He blamed humanity for it, and now his daughter was hunted for knowing it. Evan didn't have to think twice. He started packing tools, fuel cells, and the small blue crystal that held the evidence. He knew where she would go. The old train yard, their first meeting place. That night, rain fell hard over the silent city. He moved through alleys and rooftops, his metal arm helping him climb the wet pipes. Searchlights swept across the streets. He moved only when they passed. When he reached the yard, he saw her hiding inside an old cargo car. Lyra looked up as he entered. Her eyes were red from exhaustion. You came, she whispered. He nodded. You didn't think I'd let you run alone. For a moment, the sound of rain filled the space between them. Then she handed him a small tablet. Everything we found, she said. Proof of the bombing orders, communication logs, everything. If we can get this to the Human Council, the war will end. Evan stared at the tablet. He knew it wasn't that simple. Neither side wanted truth, they wanted control. Still, he said, then we'll make them listen. They spent the night inside the train car. He fixed broken circuits while she kept watch by the window. Sometimes she hummed softly, an alien tune that reminded him of calm before storms. He didn't tell her, but hearing it gave him strength. At dawn, drones appeared over the yard. Dozens of them. A deep voice echoed from a speaker. Lyra Rain, you are ordered to surrender. The human with you will not be spared. She froze. Evan pulled her back into the shadows. They found us, she whispered. He looked around. The only escape was the tracks leading into the old tunnels. He grabbed his bag. Come on. They ran between metal pillars as the drones fired beams of light. Explosions tore through the ground. One blast hit close. Evan shielded Lyra, his arm taking the impact. Sparks flew, wires broke, but he kept moving. They jumped into an open cargo car. A moment later, the old train roared to life. Someone had activated the system remotely. The wheels screeched and the train began to move. Lyra held on tight as it rolled faster and faster. Through the smoke, they saw soldiers on flying bikes chasing the train. Evan climbed to the roof and pulled out a flare gun. He fired once, blinding the riders with light. Another drone came close. He swung his damaged arm, hitting it so hard that sparks filled the sky. Lyra climbed up beside him, holding a control pad. She aimed at the nearest drone and overloaded its system. The explosion lit up the night. She smiled for the first time in days. He smiled back. Not bad, but the chase wasn't over. Ahead, the rail split into two directions. One track led to the alien capital, the other to the mountains where no one lived. Lyra looked at him. If we take the mountains, we disappear. If we go to the capital, we end this. He didn't hesitate. Then we go to the capital. The train roared forward on the left track. Behind them, the enemy kept coming. Rain turned to fire as drones exploded in midair. Evan held Lyra close as the train entered a dark tunnel. Inside, the world went silent again. Only the sound of the engine echoed in the dark. They both sat down, breathing hard, hearts racing. Lyra leaned her head on his shoulder. Her voice was quiet. You could have left me. He looked at her and said softly, I don't know how to. Outside, thunder rolled over the burning city. The chase was far from over, but together they were no longer running from fear. They were running toward truth, and both knew what waited in the alien capital would change everything. The train slowed as it entered the alien capital. The city shimmered with tall towers of blue glass and floating lights. But behind the beauty lay silence. People watched from the shadows, afraid to speak. Soldiers patrolled every corner, their armor glowing like cold steel. Evan and Lyra stepped off the train at dawn. They wore stolen cloaks, hiding their faces. The air smelled of metal and ozone. Lyra moved quickly, leading him through narrow streets. This way, she whispered. There's a hidden chamber under the old council hall. That's where the proof belongs. They moved through the alleys until they reached the hall, a massive building of black stone. Its tall pillars reached the sky like claws. Inside, guards marched in silence. Evan felt every step echo through the floor. When they reached the underground passage, Lyra stopped. A door opened ahead, and from the light stepped a tall alien in royal armor. His face was sharp and proud, his eyes a deep silver. Lyra froze. It was her father, General Rayan. For a long moment, no one spoke. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Rayan's voice was calm but cold. So my daughter returns from hiding. You've brought a human into our city. How noble. Lyra took a step forward. You lied to everyone. You started the war. Rayan's eyes narrowed. I did what had to be done. Our people were weak. Your human friends made us slaves of peace. Evan stepped beside her. You killed thousands to look strong. Rayan looked at him with disgust. You should have died in that bombing. Instead, you became her weakness. Lyra's hands trembled, but her voice was steady. I saw the files, Father. I know the truth. Project Dawnfire, the bombings, all of it, you planned everything. The general turned away. You understand nothing, child. One day you will see I was right. She reached into her cloak and pulled out the data drive. Everyone will see, she said. I will show them what you did. Rayan's guards raised their weapons. Evan stepped forward, blocking her with his metal arm. Don't, he warned. If you shoot, the whole city will know. Rayan looked at his soldiers and lifted his hand. They lowered their weapons, but the tension stayed. He walked slowly toward his daughter. Give me the drive, he said softly, and I will forgive your mistake. Lyra's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't move. You can't forgive what you destroyed, Rayan sighed. Then you leave me no choice. He reached for his weapon, but Evan was faster. His mechanical arms struck the gun away, sparks flying across the marble floor. Guards rushed forward. Evan fought with everything he had. His metal arm crashing against armor, his other hand throwing punches like thunder. Lyra grabbed a fallen staff and swung it at the nearest soldier. They fought side by side, just like in the ruins long ago. The hall lights flickered as alarms blared. More guards poured in. Lyra pulled Evan toward a console at the far end. This system connects to the city grid, she said. If we upload the files here, everyone will see them. Evan held the guards back while she connected the drive. Her fingers moved fast over the glowing screen. Lines of code appeared. Almost done, she whispered. Rayan rose from the floor, his armor cracked, his pride burning in his eyes. He shouted, Stop her! He drew a blade of white energy and charged. Evan turned, using his arm to block the strike. The blade cut deep, sparks exploding in every direction. Evan fell to one knee, pain flooding his body. Rayan raised the blade again. Lyra screamed. She reached for the console and pressed the final key. The screen turned bright white and a voice echoed through the city's broadcast towers. "This is Lyra Rayan. The war you lived through was built on lies." The message spread across every home, every street, every sky screen. Images of the bombing orders flashed for all to see. The truth was free. Rayan's blade fell from his hand. He looked around as the soldiers froze, hearing the broadcast echo through the walls. His empire of lies was falling. He looked at his daughter, his voice trembling for the first time. "What have you done?" She met his gaze. "I did what you taught me. I protected our people." Outside, the city erupted in chaos. Crowds filled the streets, shouting his name, demanding answers. Evan stood beside her, his arm damaged but his eyes alive with fire. "It's over," he said. But Lyra looked at the flames rising beyond the window and whispered, "No, it's just beginning." The city burned through the night. Flames rose high against the glass towers. Sirens echoed as soldiers dropped their weapons and crowds filled the streets. For the first time, humans and aliens stood together, not as enemies, but as people who had both been lied to. Lyra and Evan watched the chaos from the steps of the council hall. Smoke drifted past them. The massive screens across the skyline still played the message she had sent, the truth that ended the war. General Rain was gone, taken by his own guards. The world he built had collapsed in one night. Evan sat quietly, his damaged metal arm sparking. Lyra knelt beside him, wrapping cloth around the broken joint. "You need rest," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "I'll live. You always make sure I do." She looked down, her eyes glowing softly in the light of the fires. "I didn't save you," she said. "You saved me first." They sat in silence as dawn broke. The fire turned to smoke, the noise faded, and the first rays of sunlight touched the city. For a moment it looked peaceful again. People on both sides crossed the wall that once divided them. Humans handed food to alien children. Alien healers treated human soldiers. Something new was beginning. Weeks passed. The war ended officially. The city started to rebuild, not as two nations, but as one. Evan worked with his tools again, building machines to clear rubble and rebuild homes. Lyra joined the new council that led both species together. They met every evening on the bridge that connected both halves of the city. One evening, Lyra brought him a small gift wrapped in silver cloth. He opened it slowly. Inside was a new arm, designed by alien engineers, light and smooth with glowing lines that pulsed like veins. "It's not a weapon," she said. "It's meant to heal and build." Evan smiled, his voice low. "Just what I needed." As he attached it, the arm came alive with soft light. He lifted it and flexed the fingers. The glow matched the color of Lyra's eyes. He looked at her and said quietly, "You built this?" She nodded. "Together we did. Your design, my energy core." He stared at it for a long moment. "It's beautiful," he said. "So is peace," she answered. That night they walked along the riverbank where the ruins once stood. Children played nearby, human and alien together, laughing without fear. Lyra watched them and whispered, "Do you think it will last?" Evan looked at the sky. "It has to," he said. "We paid too much for it to break again." She smiled. For the first time in her life, she believed him. As the stars began to appear, the city lights turned soft gold. Evan reached into his pocket and pulled out the old metal badge, the one that had his name burned into it, the one she had found in the rubble years ago. It was cracked and blackened, but still there. He handed it to her. "Keep it," he said. "It belongs to the story now." She held it close to her heart. Her voice was almost a whisper. "You lost your arm that day to save me." He looked at her and said softly, "I didn't lose anything. I found you." The wind moved through the broken streets, carrying the smell of rain and new earth. For a while they didn't speak. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full of everything they had survived. At the edge of the rebuilt bridge, a statue stood. It showed a human man carrying a small alien girl through fire. Below it, a single line was carved into the stone. He refused to drop her. People from both worlds came every day to touch the statue, to leave flowers, to tell their children that peace was born from that moment. As night settled again, the lights of the city reflected in the calm river. Lyra turned to Evan, her voice calm and steady. "Do you ever think about that day?" He nodded. "Every day, but not with pain anymore." She smiled gently. Then maybe we've both healed. The sky turned dark blue, full of stars. Lyra reached out and took his hand, the light from his new arm glowing between their fingers. Together they watched the horizon as the last fires of war faded into dawn. The city had a new heartbeat now, one that belonged to both of them. And as the first light of a new day touched their faces, Evan whispered, "This is what we were saving all along."